I've been driving a truck for a little over 15 years now, and I've seen just about everything you can imagine on the road. Accidents, storms, weird people at truck stops, you name it. But there's one night on I-40 that never left me. Sometimes I think about it when I'm halfway across the country, with nothing but the hum of the engine and the white lines for company. And every time I do, I get that same tight feeling in my chest. Because deep down, I know what I saw shouldn't be possible. It was late November, a few days before Thanksgiving. I was hauling a refrigerated load out of California, headed east toward Tennessee. The plan was simple: push through the night, catch a few hours of sleep in New Mexico, and keep rolling. I'd driven that stretch of I-40 more times than I could count. That night, the road felt different. The weather had turned colder than the forecast said it would. You could see your breath inside the cab if you turned off the heater for even a minute. The sky was clear, but there was this thin layer of fog hugging the asphalt, just enough to make the headlights feel weaker than usual. The radio was mostly static, just old country songs, fading in and out as I crossed from one station's range to another. It was sometime around 2 in the morning when it started. I remember, because I glanced at the clock after I realized I hadn't seen another pair of headlights in at least half an hour. No trucks, no cars behind me, no oncoming traffic. Just me, the road, and that endless, low fog. If you've ever driven long haul, you know that feeling when the world gets too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you turn the radio down just to check if something's wrong. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was just a signpost, or maybe a shadow from the trees lining the side of the highway. But as I got closer, I realized there was a man standing on the shoulder, right by the white line, facing my lane. No hazard lights, no car, no broken down vehicle. Just a man in a dark jacket, hands in his pockets, head slightly bowed like he'd been waiting. My first thought was, damn, someone must have gotten stranded. I eased off the accelerator, hand going to the CB out of habit, even though I knew there was no one around to hear me. As my headlights hit him full on, I got a better look. He looked to be in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. Gray in his beard, baseball cap pulled low, jeans, boots. Nothing about him screamed dangerous, but there was something about the way he just stood there, like he knew I'd stop, like he'd been expecting me. Now, any company safety manual will tell you not to pick up hitchhikers, especially not in the middle of the night on an empty stretch of I-40. But I've been stranded before, and I've had nights where all I wanted was for someone to stop. So I did what a lot of drivers wouldn't. I tapped the brakes, turned on my hazards, and eased the rig over to the shoulder. He didn't wave, didn't jump or react like someone relieved to see help. He just started walking toward the passenger side, like this. was all routine. I leaned over and unlocked the door. "Everything all right, man?" I called out, watching him in the side mirror. He pulled the door open and climbed in like he belonged there. The cab filled with a rush of cold air and something else I couldn't quite place, like old dust and rain-soaked asphalt. "Evening," he said, voice low, steady. "Mind if I ride with you for a bit?" His calmness put me on edge more than if he'd been panicked. Yeah, sure," I replied. "You stranded out here?" He shut the door gently, settled into the seat, and buckled the seatbelt like he'd done it 1,000 times. I put the truck back into gear and eased us back onto the highway. For a few miles, we just rode in silence. The kind of heavy silence that makes you hyper-aware of every little sound. The fan, the engine, the faint rattle in the dash I still hadn't fixed. Finally, I cleared my throat. "So, where you headed?" He watched the road, eyes following the lines like he knew them well. "East," he said, "just east. I'll get off before you do." That answer didn't make a lot of sense, but I let it slide. After a while, he turned his head, studying me. "You been driving long?" "Yeah," I said. "Long enough. 15 years or so." He nodded slowly like he already knew that. "Long nights out here," he murmured. "Gets real lonely, doesn't it?" I shrugged, keeping my hands steady on the wheel. "Sometimes. Radio helps. Coffee helps more." He chuckled softly. "Coffee and prayer," he added. "Those are the only two things that really keep you going." That caught my attention more than it should have. I hadn't mentioned anything about fate, but he said it so naturally, like it was obvious. "You a religious man?" I asked. He looked at me, and for a second I swear his eyes didn't match the rest of him. There was something too clear in them, too calm. "Let's just say I've seen what happens when people think they're in control of everything," he replied. "Especially out here, on nights like this." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just let the words hang between us. We drove like that for a while, through the darkness, through the fog, through stretches of road I normally barely noticed. But that night, every reflector, every curve, every little bump felt sharp. Then he spoke again. "You were getting tired before you saw me," he said like he was commenting on the weather. "You were thinking about pushing through anyway, maybe making it to Amarillo before you stopped." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. He was right. I hadn't told him that, but he was right. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "How'd you know that?" He shrugged. "Same look in your eyes I've seen in a lot of drivers. You start thinking you're invincible. Just one more hour. Just one more state line. Then, well," he gestured vaguely toward the windshield. "The road decides otherwise." I forced a chuckle. Look, man, you're some kind of safety trainer or something. He smiled, but there was something sad in it. Something like that. We rode on. A few minutes later, the fog got thicker. I had to slow down, dropping from 70 to 50, then to 45. The world outside the cab shrank to just the reach of my headlights. I could barely see the lines on the road. I flipped off the radio entirely. Didn't like the idea of any extra distraction. This stretch, the man said quietly. You've been here before. Couple years back. I glanced at him again. Yeah, I said slowly. I have. How do you? You saw a wreck once, right about this mile marker. He pointed ahead like he could see through the fog. Car under the back of a trailer. Driver never hit the brakes. You still think about that sometimes, don't you? My mouth went dry. He was right again. 2 years earlier, I'd passed a wreck that looked like something out of a nightmare. A small sedan crushed so far under a trailer that you could barely see it. State troopers said the driver had likely fallen asleep. I never forgot it. Sometimes, late at night, I'd see it in my mind, just as clear as the night it happened. I hadn't told that story to many people. It definitely wasn't something a stranger should have known. How do you know that? I asked, voice lower now. This time there was no fake laugh, no attempt to play it off. He didn't look at me. He just kept his eyes on the road. I'd pay attention, he said. I see a lot from where I stand. Something cold slid down my spine. About 10 miles later, just as I was thinking about pulling into the next rest area, no matter what my schedule said, he sat up a little straighter. Slow down, he said. I checked my mirrors out of habit, then looked ahead. All I see is fog. Yeah, he said calmly. That's the problem. Just slow down a bit more. Trust me. There was something in the way he said trust me that cut through whatever stubbornness I had left. I eased off the throttle and gently pressed the brakes, bringing us down to 35. Hazards on again. We crawled along for maybe another mile. The fog so thick it felt like driving through cotton. I could barely see the reflectors on the shoulder. Then, out of nowhere, something huge flashed across my headlights. Whoa! I slammed the brakes, heart jumping into my throat. A dark shape loomed just a few yards in front of us. Another truck, jackknifed across the lanes, trailer blocking almost the entire road. No flares, no hazards. Just a dead hulk of metal waiting in the fog. If I'd been doing 70 like before, there wouldn't have been any time to react. I would have plowed straight into it. My truck shuddered as we came to a stop. ABS kicking in, tires grabbing just enough traction to keep us from sliding into the wreck. For a moment, everything went silent. No engine noise, no radio, no nothing. My hands were shaking. "You're all right," the man next to me said gently. You stopped in time. Take a breath. I did. In, out, slow. Adrenaline burned in my veins, but it was starting to fade into something else. Shock, maybe. Relief. How did you know? I finally asked. There were no lights, no warning, nothing. He took a long breath, then let it out. Let's just say this isn't the first time something like that's happened on a night like this, he replied. And you're not the first driver who thought they could push just a little further. We sat like that for a few seconds, staring at the truck ahead, his dark silhouette barely visible through the fog. Then I reached for my phone to call 911 to report the wreck. They told me troopers were already on the way, that they'd gotten another call a few minutes earlier. The other caller said they couldn't stay, but saw the wreck and wanted to make sure someone came. When I hung up, I turned to the passenger seat. I don't know who you are, I said, voice barely above a whisper. But thank you. You probably just saved my life. He finally turned fully toward me. There was no smugness there, no pride. Just that same sad, calm look. This isn't about me, he said. You weren't meant to stop on that trailer tonight. Not here. Not like this. He glanced out the side window, then back at me. I'll get out up here, he added. Rest area's not far. You should park, get some sleep. Call your family tomorrow. Tell them you love them. A lump formed in my throat. Yeah, I said quietly. Yeah, I'll do that. We waited until I saw faint flashing lights approaching in the distance. State troopers navigating the fog. When they got close enough that I felt safe moving, I eased around the wreck and crawled forward until the next exit, which led to a small rest area. I pulled in, parked, and set the brakes. When I turned to thank him again, the passenger seat was empty, door still closed. Seatbelt neatly folded beside him like it had never been used, no sign of the man at all. I checked outside, walked around the truck, even looked near the restroom building. No one, just the cold air, the fog, and the sound of a vending machine humming. I must have stood there for 10 minutes, just listening, trying to make sense of it. Eventually I climbed back into the cab. My hands were still shaking as I killed the lights and sat in the dark. Engine idling low. On the dashboard, tucked under my C-bar mic, I saw something that wasn't there before. A small, worn card. Like one of those little things people used to keep in their wallets. I picked it up. On one side, there was a picture of a highway stretching out to the horizon under a sunrise. On the other, a short verse. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. No name, no number, just that. I don't know what you believe. I don't even know what I believe half the time. I'm just a trucker who spends too many nights alone with his thoughts and the sound of the engine. But I know this. if I hadn't slowed down when that man told me to, I wouldn't be here to tell this story. And on nights when the road gets too quiet and the fog starts to roll in, I still catch myself glancing at the passenger seat, just in case he ever decides to ride along again. Until then, I keep that little card above my visor, and every time I pass that stretch of I-40, I hear his voice in the back of my mind. Coffee and prayer. Those are the only two things that really keep you going.